Give a score for departure. Ranger transition. Radar vectors, Robbinsville. 940 tower cross, we let it go. Turn left on November and contact ground point 9 on the other side. 34010.
I have the opportunity after just 6 months, actually yesterday was my 6-month anniversary, to bid the Boeing 757, as they call it. It's the 757 and the 767. So I'm kind of torn because the pilot in me is like, yeah, absolutely. Do I want to fly that airplane? The nickname for it is the Atari Ferrari. Overpowered, just a ton of fun to fly from what I hear. And the destinations are a whole other thing, which I'll get into. But of course, I don't want to ruin what I have now because it's going pretty well on the 7.3. I've got just under 200 hours in it. I'm able to hold a line. I did really just slaughter my bid for April, and I'm on reserve again, and I'll kind of talk about that. But I can hold the line. I had a great schedule for this month. All right, this is what my schedule was as a very, very junior line holder for the month of March, initially anyway. I had a Mexico City 2-day. It was one leg there, one leg back on the 8th. Day trip, 2 days off, one leg to Liberia, Costa Rica on the morning of the 12th, one leg back to Newark on the 13th. A day off, busy 3-day, 2 days off, San Jose, 2-day, day off, another busy 3-day, day off, Punta Cana 2-day, which I think was kind of a busy 2-day if I remember correctly. A day off, day trip, and another day off. And I was able to trade pretty much all of that away for this schedule, which, I mean, I look at this and I think this is something that it would take years to get. This was pretty good. This was all afternoon or morning Florida turns, 19 days off. Now, I did pick up some trips in between because I can't live on first year pay and 19 days off. But this is something that I was able to do for March. Now, I do not expect to have a schedule like this for the summer, but it was really, really nice for March. I enjoyed it significantly. My wife, not so much. So there's a lot of upside to staying on the 7.3. There's a little bit of downside. There's some upside to going to the 7.5, and there's certainly some downside too. All right, vacancy bid. I will do my best to explain it as best I can. All right, so I mentioned a vacancy bid. Some of you may be aware of what it is. Some of you may not be familiar with the term. But essentially, the airline says, hey, we have X amount of flying on each fleet, so we need this many pilots on the airplane. Now, sometimes it's caused by pilot retirements or growth, such as we're getting a bunch of 7.3 Maxes, some 787s. So all of these things create what's called a vacancy bid. All right, the numbers here are not accurate, but the format is. So this is what the vacancy bid would look like. You get an email saying, hey, vacancy bid opens, tomorrow, it closes in a week. This would say, 100 vacant positions in every single airplane, every single seat, right? So based on your seniority, you put in your preferences, and the vacancy bids open for about a week or so, and they run a snapshot every day. So I had, 7.3 captain as Newark 7.3 captain, and then Newark 787 FO, Newark 777 FO, and then Newark 756 FO. And believe it or not, I was able to hold it on the snapshot, and I was super excited. I'm like, all right, I get to fly the 7.5. And then I kind of took a step back, and I was like, do I really want to do this? Now, in the airline world, we talk about percentages. So currently in Newark, I am 70% in base. To make it easier, let's say there's 100 pilots in base. I'm number 70, I'm 70%. So obviously, the lower your seniority number, the better your schedule is going to be, because as we all know, and I painfully had to learn once again, seniority is everything. So right now I'm 70% on the 7.3, and on the 7.5 I'd be like 96%. So I'd be just right on the bottom. And there are really cool things that you can do with the vacancy bid. You could say, hey, I want to stay a 7.3 FO until I can hold 7.5, 6 at, let's say, 75%. But the snapshot gives you a good idea of kind of where you are. Now, there was a couple of months ago, post-COVID, 2022 up until about 6 months ago, there was, they were running these massive vacancy bids every month, and believe it or not, there was actually Newark 73. This went on for months. There was Newark 73 unfilled captain vacancies, which I would have just absolutely jumped on. That's not the case anymore. And there was also new hires that were getting, 75, 777, 78, and that's not the case anymore. Hiring has slowed down significantly. It's still much higher than it was pre-COVID, but it's a lot less, probably more than 50% less than it was right after COVID, where they were hiring, all the airlines are hiring 2,500 a month. So my class and pretty much all the classes since have all been narrow body, all 7.3 or A320. So not a big deal. That's the airplane I'm eventually going to upgrade in first, I would imagine. So I kind of wanted to fly the airplane, but that's just kind of how the vacancy bids work. So let's say they have all of these available slots. They'll say, hey, there's 5756 FO slots available in Newark, and if they run the bid and only 40 take them, then you have 10 available spots. So who gets those spots? It goes to new hires. And vacancy bidding is different than your monthly bid, where your monthly bid it runs every month, obviously, because you have to get your schedule for the month, and you put in your preferences on what's called PBS preferential bidding system, and based on your seniority, like me, 70%, you put in your request, and it kind of filters through the most senior person all the way down to you. And part of the reason why I want to stay on the 7.3 is because my seniority progression has excelled rapidly. Even a little bit more movement is going to help me out. And speaking of the last vacancy bid that we had, there was 184 unfilled vacancies. So those are all people that'll be behind me. So that's great, and that means hopefully some weekends off for some cub flying or kids activities, but everything is based on seniority. Even though I've never flown it, my favorite variant, the 7.3-200. I like the Cub, so obviously I'm gonna like flying the 7.3. It's a fun airplane to fly. You hand fly it everywhere. We do mostly two, occasionally three, sometimes 4 legs a day, but that's pretty rare. I haven't seen that. And it's like it hand flies significantly better than the Airbus. So the Airbus, it was always kind of twitchy. It just wasn't very engaging. 7.3, interestingly enough, one of my first flights, the captain's like, hey man, you're fighting the airplane. There's a trim switch, and 12 years of Airbus flying, you kind of forget about that. But the airplane hand flies incredibly well, especially the Maxes. I mean, they're really beautiful flying airplanes. Love the auto throttles that they move. The biggest upside of the 7.3 though is the flying. So we do, especially out of Newark, a ton of Caribbean 2 days where you do one leg to, let's say, St. Thomas. You're there by 11 in the morning, and the next day you don't leave until the afternoon. Either you go back to Newark or maybe you go to Chicago and then Newark. But it's just really easy, really nice flying. I almost hate to tell my wife I'm going to work because she's like, it's a vacation. And I mean, it kind of is. It's just a really, really nice, it's a nice way to spend your time at work. Now, of course, there are days where you have short overnights and you're going to Des Moines or Omaha or someplace that you've been 1,000 times. But, Newark's got probably some of the best 7.3 flying in the system. What I don't like about it is absolutely, destroying my bag. And I'm short. I'm a little guy. I'm like 5'7" on a good day. And I can't, if they would have made the airplane like 6 inches bigger, it'd be great. But even putting your suitcase in is just such a hassle. And the way the seat moves, and you can't recline all the way back because the circuit breakers are there. And then if you want to move the seat back to get out, you have to, unrecline it all the way, and it's a very, very uncomfortable airplane. Great flying airplane, but it's going to cripple me. I don't, and I'm not joking when I say that. Maybe I need to buy some kind of back cushion or something, but it's not good.
Here we see Captain Joe. After 20 years on the 7.3, he spends his time in retirement, immobilized with a broken back. He passes the days wondering why he never bid the 7.5.
And now, why would I want to bid for the 7.5? You're asking if I have such a great schedule. Well, I mean, we're all pilots, right? You see an airplane that looks, badass like the 7.5. I mean, why would you not want to fly that? Everyone that I've talked to that's flown it, they have nothing bad to say about it. It's got just a ton of power. Um, it's just a great, it's a pilot's airplane, right? So, that's one of the one of the large reasons. Not that I want to go type rating shopping, but I think it's cool to get typed in all these different airplanes, so you can say that you've flown them and you can experience what different airplanes, right? Now the problem with bidding the 7.5, and again the 7.5 and the 767 is it's same type rating, same fleet. But again, seniority, I'll never see the 767 because it's a higher paying. So the 76400s is like true wide body pay. It's like 777 pay. So at my seniority at 90 something percent, I'm not going to see that. The 7.5 goes to all these, I mean, incredible places. It goes to Paris, Italy, Germany. It goes all over Europe. And at my seniority, I'll probably be doing these. There's like these really not desirable London 3 days where I think you leave late at night. If you can sleep on an airplane, you're good to go. If you can't, you're going to be in trouble. I've been flying for 20 something years and I've deadheaded quite a bit, and I don't think I've ever had like a solid sleep in an airplane. If it was something like the 7.8 or the 777 where they have a bunk, I think I'd be fine with that. But sleeping in like a lie flat seat that's blocked off, which is what I believe they do, I think that would be kind of tough. Now, if I was senior enough to hold trips where I wouldn't need to do the red eyes or I could do all domestic stuff, it'd be great. But that's far away. And the reason why people will say, well, yeah, but you'll build seniority once you get a year or two down the road. The issue there is the window of opportunity is very narrow for me to bid this airplane, because these airplanes have been around for a while and they're not going to be around too much longer. At least that's the plan. They're going to be replaced by the XLRs, the Airbus XLRs. That they may have the same range as the 7.5s, and they're definitely more comfortable, I'd imagine, and quieter. But they're certainly not. They don't have the excess thrust and the power that the 7.5s do. So not a big deal. But again, it's just that I've flown the Airbus. The XLR is the same type rating as a 320. It's just differences training. 7.5 is a complete different airplane. So, that's kind of where, as the fleet ages out or they retire airplanes, I could just keep staying. I could even, if I bid over and I'm 96%, I could always move back to like 97%, or they could displace me because the fleet is shrinking so much. So it's kind of hard to say what my seniority would look like in a year or 6 months or 2 years, whatever. In an ideal world, if I knew, hey, I can hold 7.3 captain a year from now, I'd probably bid the 7.5 6 months from now so I could do the training, try that type of flying. Then if I hate it, I could say, okay, I'm going to go to the 7.3 because we have what's called seat locks. Now, as a new hire, the pay first year is the same for all the fleets. But what we're able to do is you can always bid up. So if you're on the 7.3, you can bid up to any airplane. You can bid up to, the 7.8. Now, once you're a 7.8 FO, you can't bid down to a 7.5 FO, but you could bid over to a 7.3 captain. Think of it as a pay band. The higher the pay, you can always bid over to something that has higher pay. And there's seat locks involved. Let's say you upgrade to 7.3 captain. You could bid back to 777 FO or 7.8 FO or 7.5 FO, whatever. But there is a seat lock involved, and I'd have to get into the contract. I think it's 2 or 3 years. The point is, it's much easier to bid up than it is to bid down. So just kind of something to be aware of. Because the threat there is if all hiring stops and I'm on the 7.5 and there's no upgrade in sight, I'm stuck there for a few years until I could bid back over to the 7.3 or Airbus or whatever's available. So these are kind of the decisions that I'm struggling with. Now, the other aspect of it is the pay, right? So if you look at just the simple, I'm not going to put them up here, but if you look at in the contract, it's like the first couple pages, the pay tables, the 7.5 pays a little bit higher. Like I said, the 7.6 pays a good bit higher, but I won't see the 7.6. So it's not really in my decision making process. Um, but what people don't realize is that you can make a significantly more money as a middle of the pack seniority line holder on the 7.3 than you could on reserve or even as a junior line holder in the 7.5. Reason being is there's a ton of 7.3 flying, and when you're in and out of the Northeast all day long, especially Newark, there's all kinds of weather, there's delays, so there's just a ton of opportunities for ad pay. There are those opportunities on the 7.5, but you're not going to see that if you're on reserve, and there's much less opportunity on that type because of the type of flying that they do. So I wouldn't really depend on that or count on that. Um, so you're probably wondering again, why would you ever think of going to the 7.5? Well, again, to fly the airplane and to, I have been doing basically the domestic flying. We go to the Caribbean, and I've done a lot of Central and South America stuff at Spirit. But since Colgan days and certainly at ExpressJet, we would do Newark to Buffalo to Cleveland to, Louisville and Chicago. You're doing 4 or 5 legs a day. And even at Colgan, I think I did 8 legs a day occasionally. So I've been doing domestic flying for over 20 years. So I think it'd be cool to go, like I said, to Paris, Italy, Greece, all these different places. That's kind of why I find the 7.5 so appealing. Is not only the pilot in me, but the airline pilot. I want to travel. I want to do this. And another thing, I think it'd be really cool to fly with some of these guys and girls that have been around since the deregulation days, that have seen 9/11, the furloughs, and kind of just pick their brain and listen to their stories. It reminds me a little bit of a really good book by Ernest Gahn, Fate is the Hunter. Obviously, that was like in the 30s and 40s, like the very early ages of airline travel. But I just think it'd be cool to kind of hear from these guys and listen to their stories. So again, a very minor detail, but I think there's something in value in that. I think flying with guys and girls that have been around for a really long time and could mentor you in a way. Because as a captain at Spirit, the majority of my first officers were younger than me, kind of new to the industry. So, there's only so much I could teach them, and only so much they could teach me. And it'd be cool to kind of learn from those more senior individuals that are wearing the 30, 35-year Alpha pins or have the battle star on their Alpha pin. So I think that would be really cool. If this was like, if it was a 7.8 or 777, there would be no question I would bid over to it ASAP. Reason being is because those guys and girls, once winter comes, I mean, even in the summer, they're not flying. I'm friends with a couple of them on Facebook, and they'll post a picture, and it's like they have like these full-blown beards. And it's like, okay, you obviously haven't flown an airplane in 3 months. And even when they do get called to fly, they're, chances are they're not actually flying. They're bunkies, which is essentially you're getting coffee for the crew, you're setting up the bunks, and then you'll go sit at the controls, and cruise for a little bit, and then you go back to sleep, and then you go out wherever you land, whether it's in, South Africa or Tokyo, whatever it is, you go out with the crew, go grab some dinner, and then come back. I mean, it's pretty appealing, right? I mean, that sounds pretty awesome, especially when you're doing, 4 legs a day in the Northeast and your ground stop to Newark or something like that. And on the 7.5, you'd be an IRO or a relief officer. So probably wouldn't get the opportunity as a super junior guy to fly, actually hand fly much either. And then every 3 months, if you don't have your 3 takeoff and landings, you have to go back to the sim in Denver to do those so you're current again. So there's a lot of questions I'm asking myself. Do I want to not really fly the airplane? And it's like, well, I have a Cub, so I could get my flying in that way. As long as I'm getting paid, what does it really matter? But I like flying. I like the challenge of it. So I don't know. It's one of these things I keep going back and forth. And I asked my wife, and I was hoping originally she'd be like, absolutely not. Family first, which 100% I agree with. But she understands. She's like, oh, yeah, that does sound kind of nice. I mean, I don't know, you could do it if you want, which is like the worst possible thing to put it all on me. I was kind of hoping she would just drop the hammer and tell me no, because it would make my life a lot easier. So anyway, I'm curious what people that, Yeah, and it's interesting because I put this poll up on my Instagram story, and all the younger people were like, "Oh, go for it, do it! Greatest airplane, and Newark 75 flying is the best in the system." I would do it even if I was on eternal reserve. And then the older, wiser guys that have done it or have just been around are like, maybe wait and kind of see, and what your seniority will look like a couple months down the road. But I wouldn't do it being so junior. So it's just kind of an interesting perspective. And like I said, if I was younger, didn't have kids, I mean, it would be, I wouldn't think twice. I'd bid it at 99%. Um, so they should have another. So anyway, the vacancy bid closed. I withdrew my bid because I'm like, let me think about it. Let me make a YouTube video first, and then I'll bid it. I'm just kidding. But I certainly didn't want to go to training in April or May and then be super junior in the summer. I have Sun and Fun coming up. I want to go to that. I have off for a couple of days for that. I have Oshkosh I want to go to. Um, Ocean City, fly the Cub there. So there's a lot of stuff I want to do in the summer that the 7.3 will allow me, that junior 7.5 reserve would not allow me. Now, come the fall, I might regret that because the 7.5 FOs will not be flying much at all, and I'll be flying to maybe some cold destinations because probably won't be senior enough for the warmer destinations. But we'll see. As long as the hiring keeps going and the vacancy bids keep happening, I should have an opportunity to bid almost every month. But we'll see what happens. So seriously, let me know your thoughts. And if anything I mentioned or talked about seems super confusing, like percentages, vacancy bidding, PBS, drop me a line and or shoot me a message, and I'll be glad to answer it. So that's it. That's all I got. Stay tuned, and I'll let you know. I'll have another video when I do bid the 7.5, and I come back and say I regret the decision with every ounce of my soul, because I'm not flying and working on the weekends, and all my buddies on the 7.3 are now 50% and doing Caribbean island overnights and stuff. So anyway, all right, guys, thanks for watching.